Hello, Zero Books readers. It's me again, Douglas Lane. This video will be a bit different. Rather than covering a Zero Books title like The Meaning of Trump, The Coming Revolution, or The Radical Feminism of Shumleth Firestone, this video will be a briefing from the Left Forum. I just went to the Left Forum and I thought I would record just a little bit of me talking here in my hotel room, show you my shirt. This is what I'm doing here in New York, is trying to be, I guess, my own Slavoj Žižek, like my own personal Jesus.
But the difficult thing to accept is, again, that there is no big other, no point of reference which guarantees meaning.
This year, the Zero Books panels at the Left Forum included a panel on video games and how video games might replace capitalism, a panel defending Marx's theory of surplus from Žižekian Lacanian deviationists, and a panel on the recent teachers' wildcat strikes. We'll be making the audio from those panels available to our patrons and on the main podcast feed. So rather than discuss our own panels, I want to take a look at two other panels and what we might understand when we take them together. At noon on Sunday, June 3rd, the Platypus Affiliated Society, a Marxist group that has the controversial slogan, "The left is dead," and that explicitly aims to destroy the really existing left so that a new left might be born of its ashes. A new left organized by the Platypus Affiliated Society, maybe, put on a panel entitled, "What is the DSA?" During the panel, they asked DSA Representative Jack Devine how the DSA was helping to set up the needed dictatorship of the proletariat that would then usher in socialism. Devine was, of course, stumped by the question.
When the moral fiber of the United States weakens and the economy collapses under the pressure of competitive coexistence, you will assume control. You will move into every phase of American political and economic life. It will be your responsibility, comrades, to purge the minds of the reactionary Americans so that they will welcome the enlightened Soviet system and conform without resistance to the dictatorship of the proletariat. Again, my congratulations, comrades. Continue the good work.
Then, at 2 p.m., the International Marxist Humanist Organization led a panel discussion on Marx, value theory, and alternatives to capitalism. On this panel, Peter Hudis pointed out that many Marxists make the mistake of conceiving of socialism in terms of property relations alone. Seizing the means of production for the working classes was transformed into seizing the means of production for the party and the state. The dictatorship of the proletariat became an end in itself and was conceived of as using the state to oversee what was really capitalist production with the addition of state-managed redistribution.
So I'm just going to focus on one issue, one of the many concepts that we can draw from Marx on this. It's not the only one. My book discusses a number of them. There's others not in my book that are certainly needed to be discussed. And that is the need to break from the domination of abstract universal labor time.
Hudis pointed out that while he disagrees with many Marxists on this point, the late Moïse Postone was in agreement with his own position regarding the need to overcome what Marx called value. What Hudis disagreed with Postone about was whether or not the proletariat can be the source of revolution or not. Or, put another way, Hudis is still hoping for the dictatorship of the proletariat to rise to power, while Postone appeared not to hope for such a circumstance. In his 1999 review of Postone's Time, Labor, and Social Domination, Hudis wrote, "For Postone, there is no real difference between the workers and the mode of labor in which they are employed. To affirmatively promote the one is to affirmatively promote the other." That is, Postone believed that the workers under capitalism were defined by the task of value production. These workers were workers in so much as they participated in a system that exploited their time to produce commodities and create a surplus. Udis, on the other hand, believes that workers should be understood in terms of their creative capacity to physically transform the world. Here's a paraphrase from his review. For the humanist Marxists, the critique of the historical specificity of value-creating labor and the commitment to the proletariat as people who could succeed at revolution was not a theoretical inconsistency. In fact, the humanist critique of value-producing labor was only achieved by affirming proletarian subjectivity. What this means is that in order to understand that workers under capitalism were aimed at creating a kind of value that was neither natural nor identical with real wealth, but rather created an abstract value in order to set up a society wherein one must turn to the market in order to survive. One had to take the workers and their experiences seriously. Udis quotes the Marxist Raya Dostoevskaya. Quote, "What Marx did that was new was to show what type of labor creates value, and hence surplus value, in the process by which this was done. What kept others from seeing it is that they had kept a goodly distance from the factory." End quote. This seems to almost suggest that the factory workers already knew what Marx had to work out in the British Museum. Or if not that, then it suggests that empathizing with the workers was what gave Marx his epiphany, his big eureka moment.
It's not all bad, Mr. Spock. Who knows? You may be able to beat your next captain at chess. Kirk out.
Chess.
Let's stop and consider for the moment the new Posadist critique of today's revolutionary left.
Simply, we must understand that what we're waiting for is a force that is outside of history that could sweep away all of the historical defeats that we've suffered. A force that is not weighed upon by the nightmare weight of dead generations. A vanguard that stands outside of history.
So let's think of this as we consider whether the working class stands outside of history. Is labor transhistorical? Certainly abstract labor time and exploitation is historical. It only arises inside of capitalism. But what about labor power? Labor power is simply the ability to work. The worker rents his labor to the capitalist in exchange for enough money to pay for the worker's social needs. A day's rent, a couple of slices of pizza, a beer, maybe. The question is whether that labor power, that ability to work, is transhistorical. Perhaps only in a future direction. Does labor power point to a new social subjectivity? Can our ability to do real physical labor, whether hard labor or simply the kind of labor required to press some buttons, be the foundation for a new world? Or are we, as Postone seems to imply, required to create a new logic, wherein labor isn't the new subject of history, but rather overcomes itself, both as abstract labor and as labor power? Let me see if I can formulate the question in terms that are easier for at least me to understand. Let's say that society is currently set up as a game of chess, played by elites, and that most of the people in this society are pushed around as pieces on the board. And let's say that the people decide to revolt. What do we want? What do we want to do? How do we want to live after we dispose of the elites and stop playing chess? Do we need to create a new game with new rules? Or do we hope for something else? Something more authentic than a game of chess to rule our lives?
What do you mean exactly?
Well, what we do is just sit there and wait for someone to have an impulse to do something.
If we do think that we must set up a new game, how are we to organize ourselves in order to create it? On what basis and under what power are we, the working class, going to create these new rules for a new society? If you enjoyed this conversation, please do consider supporting us on Patreon. Our patrons help to make sure that Sublation Media can continue to provide interviews, videos, books, and articles that are critical of the left from the left. If you are tired of remaining stuck within bourgeois ideologies and politics, help us sublate them both.